Hey, Mac.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. We had some pretty awesome comics today, so it was a good day.
Yeah, it was a eclectic mix.
Yeah,
A lot of
that's
people
for sure.
black, but, kind of different takes on it. So, um, I guess we can get started with our non King in Black, our token non King in Black issue of X-Men number 17, obviously written by Jonathan Hickman and featuring Storm.
Yeah, yeah. We'll start off a little bit differently this week, right? Like we usually jump right into King in Black. I figured, I don't know if we're on the same page on this one, but we tend to agree on the Krakoa mutant realm here. These are not typically our favorites. That was the case for me here. I like the X-Men when they simplify it. So I did like that we got a simple team here. The X-Men involved being just Storm, Cyclops, and Jean Grey. But they get into the really complicated history and dynamic with the Shi'ar Empire and other aliens, and kind of little. It was a lot to take in really just like a couple pages of context that they give you right in the beginning.
Yeah, there's a lot. Let's just say, it's a one and done. So yeah. It's not. You don't really need know a lot about Krakoa and all that stuff. It gets a little in the weeds of the cosmic side of the Marvel universe. It's very wordy for a comic book. And so, I would agree. It wasn't my favorite. It's definitely, I would say, better than some of the other stuff we've run, which is just completely inaccessible. The X-Men are sort of coming back together after the events of Ten of Swords as a team, as opposed to just sort of code for mutant. So, it's a nice little, I think, a little palate cleanser before we probably get into the next story, which will be coming soon.
Yeah, and I did like that this is a one and done, because as this started, and I'm looking forward to where X-Men is going, as we'll talk about a little bit in the news a little bit later. But I'm looking forward to that, and I was kind of worried, like, oh, we're going to start off with this huge, complicated story with other alien empires and stuff like that. So I like that they contained that story to just this issue, and it seems like they'll be moving into something different going forward.
Okay. Next we have King in Black, Namor number 3. Continuing that sort of look back, and we've been critical on this title in the past, but this one I think really kind of was a step up. I mean, it started getting clear. You start seeing a little bit more of the side effects, so to speak, of what's going on. So, I really thought this was a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. This series, my biggest issue with this series has been that it's more or less a prequel to King in Black. It loosely ties into King in Black. We don't know exactly how just yet, but we're finally getting there now, right? Like, we're getting into the point where we can see some new stuff happening as opposed to just stuff we knew was coming. So this issue got us to where this is starting to get really interesting, and I'm really looking forward to this next one, whereas previously with this series I haven't been looking forward to the next issue.
And also on the King in Black train, we've got The Man Without Fear.
Yeah, now we're getting into the good stuff from this week, because I loved this issue. This was so good. We haven't read a lot of Daredevil, so I haven't been caught up on the ongoing Daredevil series. He is in prison, so an interesting dynamic to what's going on with this character is, you expect Daredevil to be out on the streets, beating up criminals and stuff like that, but he's it's a very different story for him. And then obviously tying into King in Black, there's a lot going on here. Lots of different angles to enjoy in this one issue.
Yeah, this is my pick of the week. For those getting caught up, Daredevil's in prison. Kingpin, as if you've been paying attention to Spider-Man 2, is mayor of New York, and or Wilson Fisk, I guguess, is the mayor of New York. And so what happens when Daredevil's in prison and King of Black happens? So we've been kind of anticipating this issue for a while, but to me it lived up. It's the first issue I read this week, and it maintained my pick of the week status.
Yeah, it was very, very close to being my pick of the week. And at the time that I read this, it was going to be my pick of the week. Things changed, as we'll get into some more. But yeah, you mentioned Kingpin, Wilson Fisk having a big role. They have his angle going on. Then they have Elektra and what she's doing going on in this one. And then, of course, Matt Murdock and a surprise ending, at least for me, that really caught me off guard. And we keep talking about how these tie-ins either build the hope for how they can get out of this bad situation with this crossover event or completely crush it. And this one, I would say, fits into the latter. So I'm very interested to see how this goes forward. Also, this issue had some terrifying artwork. So if you're a fan of the horror genre, check this one out because it was creepy.
Yeah. Moving on to more King of Black, got Deadpool, which I think is the end of this run of Deadpool.
Yeah.
Which he references. To say much is to spoil it, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, as if you couldn't guess from my shirt, this is my pick of the week. I loved Daredevil, and I was all about it. It was going to be my pick of the week, and then I read this one, and I laughed the entire way through it. It's as expected, hilarious. There are some scenes in this one that are very similar to, especially the sequel, the second movie. So if you liked the Deadpool movies, you'll love this book. If you like what's going on in King and Black, you'll love this book. It's wildly entertaining. It's ridiculous. And I now need every piece of merchandise for Jeff the Land Shark that I can find because that is my new favorite character.
Yeah, no, totally. And what happens to him is heartbreaking yet magical at the same time.
Yes.
And so this book, Savage Avengers number 17, it makes it sound like it's a team book, but it's not. It's really what happens when Conan the Barbarian meets Deadpool in person. And doesn't tie into the Deadpool issue we just talked about, but is all sorts of awesome because of that.
Yeah, and it loosely, it doesn't really even tie into King and Black until maybe the last couple of pages too. But this is really just about the dynamic between two very different characters and, you know, how they could work together. Again, of course, Deadpool's involved. It's hilarious. Some really funny lines in this book. Conan's a ridiculous character on his own for very different reasons. So, yeah, no, again, very entertaining. If not for two other great comics, could have been my pick of the week on another given week. So, yeah, really like this one.
Moving ahead, you know, the April solicitations just came out. So we're getting a little look of what's happening in Marvel comics after King and Black, or kind of as King and Black's wrapping up. And one of the first things we got is a whole new lineup for Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, mostly a similar lineup. I mean, you still got Star-Lord, Gamora, Groot in there. So
but you these two guys here.
Yeah, there are two big names added to the roster here. And if you read Empire, you probably have a better understanding of why. But Wiccan and Hulkling, Emperor Hulkling, I should say, added to the Guardians of the Galaxy lineup, which is very interesting. I like this new team. I'm interested to see where this goes. And that's coming off of, I mean, we agreed Empire was not our favorite crossover event. And yet here I am interested in this sort of aftermath from it. So yeah, I think they did a good job. I'm looking forward to seeing this one in April.
Got X-Men Legends. You know, we keep talking about how Krakoa we kind of miss old school X-Men. So here's a chance to get a little bit of that right now.
Yeah, and you mentioned on Zacks of Life podcast this week that a comic is coming out that's going to reveal, you know, something else with the Summers family. And here you go, X-Men Legends, getting into Adam X's connection to the Summers bloodline. So definitely interested to see where this goes. I like you said, getting back to classic X-Men. I mean, the cover alone brings up so much nostalgia and just really loved it.
Yeah, it's nothing like blue and yellow X-Men.
Yeah, can't wait for this one for sure.
Speaking of X-Men, as we look ahead to the future, you can vote on who will be in the X-Men, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. I alluded to this earlier when we were talking about the comic. I like this direction. They're forming the actual X-Men again. We're going to have this, superhero team as opposed to what Krakoa has been. And there's been a lot of awesome stuff going on with Krakoa. Don't get me wrong. I like a lot of it. But they've moved away from what the X-Men were originally about. And I like that not only are they getting back to that, but also letting fans become a part of it and choose the final member of the team, which is really cool. Have you voted for this poll yet?
I did. I'm trying to find the complete list. Okay, here we go. It's Banshee, Polaris, Forge, Boom Boom, Tempo, Cannonball, Sunspot, Strong Guy, Marrow, and Armor. So who do you vote for?
Being the classic X-Men fan that I am, I went with Banshee.
Yeah, I was thinking of actually going with Cannonball, but when you got Boom Boom, I won't Boom Boom.
I also really like Polaris as a character as well. Again, just showing, I go back to the not original. Polaris is far from an original X-Men, but going back to more of the classic characters as well. There's some great characters on this list, though, so lots to choose from. Also want to mention that if you're a Marvel Insider, which you can sign up for on Marvel.com, you can also enter a sweepstakes coming up to be drawn into this X-Men issue, which is, just awesome. I can't even imagine. So definitely go and check that out and enter that contest.
I'm going to talk about this, and then there's something that's not on your list, but I feel like we need to talk about it, and I don't know why it's not on your list. So
I might have missed something.
Woman of Marvel?
Yeah, another issue coming out in April. Like you said, we're getting to that point where we're starting to get all those comics coming out after King in Black. And this is sort of just a one-off here, but some interesting stories with a lot of really cool characters. She-Hulk will be involved, Peggy Carter, Marrow, Elektra, Rogue, and Mystique. So yeah, if you like that scene in Endgame, this is a whole comic book issue giving you that, really. So some fun stories with some really great characters. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, and then a similar style is that Marvel Voices line, which we've seen other titles, but they're coming up with Marvel Voices Legacy, which will feature characters of all sorts of diverse backgrounds. It looks like you got Blade here, Jubilee, Storm, Kamala Khan, Miles Morales, and I guess America Chavez.
Monica Rambeau will be involved as well. There's again some really, really great characters, and this is one issue with 7 different stories. So this is going to be a really fun issue. Not something that's going to build a bigger story going forward, but again, just a really fun singular issue to pick up and read.
Yeah, and sometimes we talk about how we kind of miss those character spotlights, but we will. It's a chance to these sort of one-offs. They've done these for decades, but what I want to talk about, and I don't know, maybe we talked about it last week and I completely forgot, but Heroes Reborn.
I was thinking about it too. I couldn't remember if we talked about it here or just on Zacks of Life. There's so many other platforms at this point, but having a lot of Marvel conversations. So yeah, Heroes Reborn. They announced and have since shared a trailer for. This is interesting. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this one.
So I remember the original Heroes Reborn. What was that, like 95? Something like that?
90s, something like that.
Yeah. And so, I think that the conceit here is a little bit different. It's like, what would happen if the Avengers never existed? Cap was never de-thawed, Thor never got Mjolnir, whatever. And, you have like sort of a Dr. Doom with the Juggernaut going on here, Squadron Supreme, Phil Coulson's playing a role. So I'm excited. I'm not usually typical, like, we used to call them in DC Elseworlds stories, but I'm excited to find out what this take is. It's coming out in May, so we don't have a lot of details, but it seems like this is the next thing after King in Black. And, I don't know if it's a crossover. I don't know if it's just a run of Avengers or what have you, but it seems like this is the next big thing. And there were some great teaser images as well. So Let me see if I can find those. But I'm excited for this. I mean, just because I'm excited to have anything. But
yeah, they it feels like a what if issue, right? Like, or series, I guess. I'm definitely interested to see where it goes. It's kind of funny, and I think a lot of comic book fans were caught off guard seeing this announced because, like you mentioned, the original in the 90s, it wasn't popular. It was not exactly a beloved comic series. It only lasted about a year, and that was billed more as sort of Marvel restarting and changing some of like heroes' backstories and stuff like that. And fans weren't happy with it, so they kind of just swept it under the rug and abandoned it. This feels very different. This doesn't feel like that original series back in the 90s. Like I said, more of a what if kind of thing.
I don't know if Franklin Richards is going to play a role in all this. So,
I mean, that would be awesome if this is all just a different reality that he's creating. Who knows? A lot of different things could happen.
So I just want to now turn to the MCU. We got some news that Thor: Love and Thunder has begun filming. They had a special ceremony with the First Nations people in Australia to sort of kick off the production. Just in this picture, they have a different virus situation than we have here in the United States, so they can do these kinds of things. Right. But we're excited, but I haven't had a chance to talk to you yet about WandaVision last week.
Yeah. Oh, man.
You have like 18 different platforms, but I'm just excited to have Wanda's children, Wiccan and Speed presumably in the MCU of some form in some way. And I look forward to seeing where that storyline goes. There's been a lot of teases about next week's episode. I don't know if you follow Asad Ayaz, head of marketing at the Walt Disney Studios, but he's excited about it. So I'm excited about it. And we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I know Paul Bettany also said that we're like not ready for this upcoming episode too. Some interesting things are going to happen. Yeah, really excited. I want to get your thoughts. Actually, you mentioned being excited about Wanda's children, aka Wiccan and Speed. Where do you think this ends? This season of this series, just in regards to whether or not these two children are still going to exist within the MCU.
I think they will exist. I don't think we're going to see them full on superhero yet. I think they will let that play out a little bit longer, but who knows?
Yeah, see, if I was to take a guess, I'm going to guess that these two children that we met in this past episode are erased from existence and just no longer exist in the MCU until something happens down the line where we meet them again, because I do think they are moving towards the Young Avengers in the near-ish future. So I think we'll see those characters eventually. I just don't think it'll be these two that we've already more or less met.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Their backstory is so complicated anyway that when I say exist, I could mean a whole lot of things. Doesn't mean, Wanda's raising them in their, 2.5 bed bathroom house. But we'll see. I'm excited. I'm excited for this week. Because I also get a new episode of Who's the Boss? Zacks of Life.
I mean, Who's the Boss too? I'm pretty sure there's a new episode of that coming out.
Oh, there is. They go into American Graffiti this week.
But yeah, there's so much going on, so many different ways this show can go. And like I mentioned, there have been a lot of teases as to what's coming. I want to know, is there a villain in this show? Is it just Wanda? I don't know anymore. I've had theories. They're falling apart, and I'm hearing more theories. I don't know.
Enjoy the ride. Just enjoy the ride. When you you'll never be satisfied. Just enjoy the ride they're making for you.
And then we've talked about how we got to see the first 3 episodes in advance. So we're coming up on episode 4. We're finally getting something new. We've been waiting, or at least I've been waiting 3 weeks for a new episode of WandaVision. I cannot wait for this one.
I am excited too. So anything else you want to talk about?
Let me just run through here. I think we got everything. Oh, the WandaVision soundtracks were now they are available each week. I haven't checked to see if episode 3 is up. I'm sure it is by now. But yeah, so you can get the episodic WandaVision soundtracks each week. So that's really cool. They're available on Spotify and Apple Music and all that fun stuff. And then they also announced Deadpool variant covers in celebration of Deadpool's 30th anniversary. That news just broke right before we came on. So yeah, so some really cool, if you're a Deadpool fan, you can find some really awesome Deadpool artwork with other great Marvel characters like the Fantastic Four and Iron Man and other characters like that.
Yeah. So we're excited for WandaVision. We're excited for. Do we get a new King in Black next week? What's the big comic for next week?
That's a good question.
I gotta document. Let me see.
I'm sure we're getting King in Black. I don't think.
Yeah. So we are getting a new issue of Venom number 33.
There you go.
The companion series, as well as 3 tie-ins. King in Black, Black Knight number 1, King in Black, Gwenom versus Carnage number 2, and Return of the Valkyries number 2. So
yeah, and that checklist was throwing me off again today because we got some issues that are ahead of some other ones, and then we got ones that came out weeks ago according to the checklist. So
the Namor completely bonkers. Like when they made that.
Luckily, it doesn't really matter. We did get a little bit of context for Kingpin from back in Thunderbolts a couple weeks ago. But aside from that, it hasn't really, it's not like you're missing something going into the issue that they are giving you. So while everything seems off on the checklist, you're still getting proper storytelling.
Absolutely. So that's our show. Don't forget to stay tuned all day. Tonight at 7:30, we'll have the debut of our new news video. And then tomorrow, Mike and Rebecca will be here to talk Star Wars. So check that out. And then don't forget this Friday, anything you want to share about Zacks of Life this week? What's your draft,
I do. I'll just say the Super Bowl's coming up. So we got something tying in there. So
don't you mean the big game?
Sorry. Yeah. The big game is coming up.
Thanks, Mac.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.